Hello and welcome to this episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Isabella. And before we get started, I just want to say thank you for listening and for watching if you're on YouTube. This is a very special space for me, a space off of social media, a place for me to be open and vulnerable. And the fact that you're listening when I know everybody and their mother has a podcast just feels really special to me. It warms my heart. And it's the place that I hope that you get the most unfiltered, real, maybe a little bit rebellious advice around money and building wealth. And today we're going to get raw and real about the myth of passive income. And when we talk about money myths, what we are really talking about are cultural myths. And in the context of the United States, a lot of cultural myths are rooted in capitalism or white supremacy. And I'll be very clear and upfront that I'm not anti-capitalist. I am certainly not for corporate capitalism, and I love trade economies and exchange economies and alternative economies. And I really love making money. I really love doing business. And I also love giving away money and having money to be generous with. So again, not anti-capitalist, but definitely not for corporate capitalism. Yeah, so many people equate corporate capitalism with capitalism itself, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. I may record another podcast episode just on that, probably this year. But let's talk about the myth of passive income, and let's just talk about it in one sentence. So the myth is that you can set it and forget it, make money while you sleep, and never have to work again. We've all seen the messaging and it's so seductive, right? Make money while you sleep. And you can make money while you sleep, but there's backstory to that. Earn six figures with one online course. There have been people who have done that, certainly. Buy this rental and retire at 40. There's, again, people who have done that. And it sounds amazing, right? I wanna not focus so much on how to do that or how not to do this or how to do that. I want to talk about the seduction. And if those options sound amazing to you, if never having to work again sounds great, then you're probably bored of what you're doing right now. Maybe you're doing something that's completely misaligned. Maybe you're working somewhere that kind of sucks your life force out of you, that doesn't fulfill a purpose, or maybe it fulfills a purpose. Maybe it's still purposeful work, but it doesn't light you up. And it doesn't fulfill maybe your soul's purpose, the purpose that you came in, right, to fulfill. And maybe you're just burned out and exhausted and need to rest, right? This exhaustion, this feeling like you're on a hamster wheel or that you're on the carousel and want to get off, this is what corporate extractive capitalism does to people, which is why the idea of never having to work again while having money coming in is so incredibly seductive. I know this is going to date me big time, but I remember watching Pippi Longstocking, and I remember that big treasure chest of like endless gold coins and being able to like, wow, she never has to go to school. She never has to work. Even at that time in my life, that felt very attractive to me. So it really targets a very young part of us of having like endless dollars where we can have anything we want, right? So it's this feeling of scarcity. It's being touched into, right? That's the hook, right? It hooks into the part of us that already feels a scarcity or a depletion, right? Or a little bit of a hole. So again, you're fucking tired. You want to get off the carousel. We think that making more money without effort is the answer. Making money or making money without effort is the answer. But the myth of passive income is that it's not actually passive. At least a chunk of it isn't. So what you see perpetuated on social media as passive income without, is like it's not showing the process that led up to that passive income. Because I can tell you right now that I earn money that feels passive to me because I didn't do a lot for it, but I did still input energy for it. So what you see perpetuated on social media doesn't show the backstory, and the backstory often involves years of upfront effort of the building process that led up to the money just coming in. Maybe you don't see the capital that was put in or the technology that was invested in, the support systems, right? The people that needed to be hired to set up the systems. It doesn't involve the risk taking, right? The mindset that you needed to be in to see the vision of being able to make passive income. You don't see the identity upgrades, the tears, the shadow work of the working through ancestral scarcity or money stuff. You don't see the deep embodiment of leadership and having to overcome any of those internal barriers that say don't show up, and then you show up anyway and you ask for the sale or you promote yourself or you speak that deeper truth. That's what people don't see, right? The honing of that part of you, the part of you that was probably shut down at a very early age. You're pulling that out and you're saying, this is who I am. This is what I believe in, right? That's what you don't see behind the scenes. And on social media, I recognize that there's a tendency to share the results but not the process. And I think people are really hungry for the process, which is really unfortunate because only showing the results after the fact really keeps people in the delusion of it can happen overnight. And listen, I've heard of cases where it has happened overnight or it's happened like within a year or 6 months, right? And that's really fast growth. So it can happen. I'm not trying to like dash any dreams or kill any dreams here. It's just there's still, even when you have like it happened in 6 months, there's probably like a 6 year on ramp to that, right? Maybe there's like, yes, I was doing all of this leading up to it, and then in 6 months it hit, right? There's still backstory. So why this only showing the results is a problem? It's because it erases the labor of creation. You absolutely have to work up front. Sometimes more than what you would do in a 9 to 5 kind of job. And passive income is only passive after you've built the engine, right? Then the car goes. And it ignores passive income, like having the myth of passive income, specifically how it's, sold online. It ignores the maintenance that goes into it. So, tech systems, sometimes they break. Funnels need to be updated. New offers need to be set up. Communities need nurturing. Maybe you need to have lead generation needs to be kind of like set up, or have that be ongoing. Clients need support. Passive products still need tending to and updating. So it also, the reason why it's problematic is because the myth of passive income romanticizes capitalism. The idea that wealth is easy, automatic, and unearned, that's often coming from like a little bit of a white spiritual lens. And it often mirrors the hoarding and extraction that we're actually trying to move away from. So, what's actually true about passive income? Yes, some forms of income require less ongoing effort over time. For example, royalties, right? Act that way. I'll talk a little bit more about these. Licensing, investments, but even these often require the time and energy and money to set up the emotional and spiritual labor to hold success. This is where the nervous system capacitation, the ancestral money work comes in, continued engagement to grow. This is where lead generation comes in. So the conclusion is that all income is active. Just some is more active than others, right? So it's a matter of a continuum, a matter of degree. How active is it? Is it face-to-face active, or is it sort of more behind the scenes active? So what you want is, instead of purely passive income, which doesn't really exist, what you want is sustainable income or leveraged income, which is leveraged income is simply put increased output for your input, right? So you're putting in the same amount of input, but the output is increased, right? So it's about creating more efficiency. So let's talk about a little bit more what leverage income. Let's get into the details with leverage income. So leverage income is money you earn without directly trading your time for it, right? After, of course, an initial investment of time, energy, and money. So unlike hourly work or client sessions, which are more linear income, leverage income scales, meaning it can grow without requiring you to work more. This is where people talk about like, don't work harder, work more efficiently, or work, in a leveraged way. So let's talk about some examples of leverage income. So there's 6 common types. Yes, 6 here. I'm looking at my notes. There are digital products. And if I know that you've seen these, they've sort of made like they're kind of trending right now or trended last year. So these are courses, ebooks, guides, templates. You've seen a lot of this master resell rights. I know there's another term, I think PLR, where you can take a product that has been like templates that have been creating, and then you can put your own spin on it, or you can like brand it for yourself and then resell it that way. So you create that's something that you can create once and you can sell that repeatedly. And you can, again, like you can either sell it repeatedly or sell it so that it can be sold repeatedly. So there's different levels of that. But you still have to do the launching and the selling of that. Then there are memberships. That's the second type of leveraged income. So this is where you have an online community, and you have or access to certain content for a recurring fee. So this is something that where you build the content once and continue to receive monthly income. I honestly don't know any. Well, yes, I some memberships you build the content once and you drip the content. So that's great. But again, this is something that you have to like, depending on what the content is, you may need to update it. I know that I used to have an online community. It was even more work because I felt like, you have to nurture your audience, you have to maintain it. This membership feels a little bit less passive than some of the other options here, just because it requires you want to continue building that safety and trust. You're managing a community. There's a lot that goes into it. So, and it depends on how big the community is. If the community is like hundreds of people and everybody's paying a low price, then that's more doable, just because the volume is high. But if your volume is lower, there's more required in terms of like nurturing. People require maybe less of you. They're there in that community just to get like a specific thing. So let's talk about affiliate marketing. Affiliate marketing, sorry. So affiliate marketing is where you promote somebody else's product or service, and then you receive a percentage commission of per sale. And I really love this particular model, because when I believe in something, I can sell the shit out of it, right? When I believe in something, then I can talk about it all day and it doesn't really feel like a lot of effort. I don't have to set up anything, any of the automations. What it requires is an audience of buyers, right? People who are already in your audience. Otherwise, it won't generate any income for you. And you do have to put in the effort for, actually putting the offer out there, right? But the times that I've done this, it's been so fun, and because I've really believed in the product and what the person is selling, it's felt great. It's felt like a no-brainer, and then you get a check for $1,000, $2,000. That's great. But again, depending on how you set up the affiliate marketing, I know that there are some people who work in the affiliate model. They work high ticket affiliate combined with network marketing, right? So that's another thing. Talk about network marketing in a moment, but there are also affiliate sales where people do multiple affiliates and make hundreds of thousands of dollars that way. So there's lots of different ways to do it. But for me, and I think for you who's listening, it's probably like it needs to feel aligned, right? It's not just like I just want to make a buck and I'm just going to do affiliate sales. No, it has to feel aligned. You have to feel passionate about it in order to be able to put it out there. Then there is licensing your work. So this is where you let others use your frameworks, your curricula, your meditations or tools for a fee. And this is used in teaching, it's used in coaching, sometimes even in therapeutic circles. And then there's network marketing. So in network marketing, you can earn a percentage of the sales of people, like your own sales, but then also people you bring onto your team and that you train, and eventually from their business partners that they bring on as well. So you're leveraging the efforts of a team to generate income without doing all of the work yourself. So in this way, it's similar to building a sales team. It's sort of in a more traditional, like a real estate business. You benefit from the team's output. And there are also therapy, like group therapy practice models that use this, where you have the people who are administrating the group therapy. Let's say it's an office, and they have multiple offices. Some people do this online, of course, but sometimes people have an in-person office, and there are the therapists or the psychologists who are setting up the practice, the group practice. They do sort of more of the administrative work, or they may also have like client hours, but then they have people join the group practice, and the benefit of those people joining is that they don't have to do any of the administrative work. They don't have to do the billing. They don't have to do the getting approved with the particular health insurance, right? None of that stuff they're having to deal with. That's a big relief off of them. And then the group practice, they take what kind of commission? Maybe like 30 or 40% of what the therapist makes. And that depends on, the percentage depends on the group practice. I think the most I've seen is like 40%, but I think that 30% feels more fair for, the administrative services that are being offered. So again, lots of different ways to do this, but it's really about building a team. So then there's investments. This is where real estate, dividend stocks, business equity comes in. This is where your money makes money for you. And this is kind of like, this is the idea of like making money while you sleep. This is where it does actually come in. This is where it is actually happening. So, this can be something like crypto or stocks too. And this feels more passive, like I said, than any of the options that I just talked about. But you still need to look at it. You still need to tend to it. You still need to optimize it, right? Based on market trends. For example, with crypto, you're having to like, okay, this is going down. We got to move it this way. It's the kind of thing that you kind of look at once a week or maybe a couple times a month. You're looking at it, making sure it's optimized. So what I also want to talk about in this episode is why leveraged income is absolutely necessary in the current economy. And the first reason is because the cost of living is increasing faster than the wages are. And this is something that I've been noticing for maybe like a decade. It's happening very slowly, but it's happening. So inflation has been consistently reducing the purchasing power of your money. We've noticed that a lot in, gasoline and healthcare, housing, food. And inflation has been consistently like 3% per year on average, right? But our wages have not gone up 3%. And in fact, I was sharing a statistic recently where wages have stayed exactly the same. And they've gone down actually I think a small percentage. So, yeah, the essentials have gone up, wages have stayed the same, and then purchasing power is down. So, trading time for money in this like flat fee model is not sustainable, especially for the folks who have bodies that don't do hustle, where it's, whether it's because you're recovering from burnout or you're in menopause and you just need to rest more. You don't have the same energy anymore. Or people who have chronic illnesses, their bodies just don't keep up with that. And it's also like this idea in this flat fee model. It's just like I don't know who created it, but it's not sustainable. And I remember when I was a therapist, I remember like I was maxing out my hours. I think I was working like 24 hours a week. And that was the maximum amount of time that I could work because my kids were young. Um, my partner and I had this arrangement where I had to come home. It was kind of like a, you know, you're on duty and now I am on duty. It was that kind of thing, right? And so I could only work a number of hours a week. And so my income was capped based on those face to face hours. I would have had to increase my fees and potentially lose clients in order for me to make more money. Or the way that I leveraged initially was going into groups, creating groups. And so that was a way for me to economize my time while still making the same amount of money. But again, that it's still limited on how big you can scale. So the another reason why it's important or absolutely necessary to have leveraged income is because the economy is more unpredictable. There are recessions, there's the threat of the market crashing, the de-dollarization, global instability, and AI is also disrupting the job market in big ways. All of that is very real. And this results in people being more careful about how they spend their money. Obviously, in a way, that's a good thing, is that they're being more mindful about their spending, but it also makes it harder to rely on one-on-one services or service-based income by itself. So having a stream of income that is leveraged offers stability through diversification, whether that's, if versus sorry, what I was going to say was whether all your income is leveraged or part of your income is leveraged, it's still another way of making money, right? So that you're not dependent on a single client or a single paycheck or a single way of making money. So, number three, the third reason why leveraged income is so critical is because your time and energy are finite and sacred. So this is one of the most important pieces for me. I was, as you know, a solopreneur and I was making money and it was fine, but I also wanted to be on a team. I wanted sort of a more collectivist model. And Solopreneurship, I realized at some point, is based in hyper individualism, in having someone be at the top. They have a team that they pay, but they're really just like one person at the top, and they are the leader. And the truth is that a lot of service-based entrepreneurs hit a ceiling eventually. Like they hit a burnout ceiling. And I know that people online are burnt out, especially because it's become harder to sell online right now because of the economy. I see a lot of people like they're working their asses off and they're making it look easy, but trust me, they are working their asses off. And leveraged income means you get to rest more and still make enough money to sustain yourself. And leveraged income, depending on what business model you use, allows you to step away from your business without losing income. This is the important part. Because, a dentist, for example, or let's say a therapist, right? I remember having the situation myself. I could not step away from my business without losing income, because if I'm not seeing clients, if a dentist is not seeing patients, then they lose money. And I know, they can still do cleanings and stuff, but there needs to be a dentist to oversee the cleaning of the dental hygienists, or, I don't know. There's lots of different people who, when they step away from their work, lose money. They're spending money on vacation and they're not making any money through their businesses. So, people have a fund, they have a backup savings fund for that. So there's ways to get around that. But as you get older, it's just, you don't have the same amount of energy. Take it from me, who I'm in my crone era. I'm not really in my crone era, but, I jokingly say that because it's been, it just became harder for me to keep up with a certain pace. And my body just having recovered, or, being a sort of a person who cannot push their body past a certain point because I have experienced burnout, it's like leveraged income is just the answer for me, right? It's a way for me to like still enjoy the, like a really, generous, generous money coming in, abundant money come in without having to extract from myself. And stepping away from your business is really, really important, especially in the context of, lifing. When a family member passes away, when somebody gets sick, when you're not feeling great, when you want to go on vacation, or when you need to tend to your kids, that's just normal life. And to expect people to have to work through those big family events or just like life stuff that happens, I think is really just like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's really vital for us to honor our cycles of creation, of work, of rest, and of play. Our bodies were not built for that, like, duck, 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 like factory like consistency, like output like a machine. Even when I talked about retirement, one of the previous episodes, just a few episodes ago, I talked about the importance of like seasons. There are seasons in people's lives. And sometimes there are seasons where people are like, fuck it, I'm just going to like buckle down and work. I'm going to work everything, like all that I can. I'm going to go all in, right? And you do go all in. And then there are seasons of like, oh, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to work more slowly. And you don't want those seasons to like, okay, well that requires that my income dips. It doesn't need to be that way, right? And so that's why leverage income is so important, so that you have the consistency of income. You're still maybe putting some effort in, but maybe you're putting effort in a different way. Maybe it's not as like hardcore as you were doing before. Fourth reason why leverage income is so critical is that you need space to create and think and heal. Creative, powerful leadership that has impact doesn't come from living in survival mode. Whether it's the survival mode is created because you need to make money, or the survival mode is created because you're extracting from yourself, right? Or yeah, because of you're working harder. So you don't have you don't have the clarity, you don't have the self connection, you don't have the regulation, you can't be at your creative peak or even be in integrity with yourself, your capital S self, your emotions, integrity with your heart, with your love, if you're being extracted with your own energy, if you're pulling out of yourself or from yourself, right? Where the well is running dry. So leverage income gets you or buys you the freedom. It sets up the freedom, the peace, and the spaciousness for innovation. And we really need that right now. We really need innovation right now. So, from a nervous system lens, the time for money models, they can mirror like trauma patterns of like overgiving and hypervigilance and undercharging. It puts your body in fight or flight mode, honestly. And leverage income helps rewire your body for trust, receptivity, reciprocity, and sustainability. And in the model that I now work in, it's a leveraged income model. Like it's financial services meets the real estate model, right? It's really It's really challenged me to receive in a way that where I still feel like I am a giver, right? I'm an overgiver. I'm a recovering overgiver, and I'm learning to be like, no, this is okay. When I check in with myself, did I give for what I received? Yes, I did give. I didn't give time in the same way, but I gave of my attention, and maybe I nurtured in this particular way or I supported in this particular way, and then I got paid. I'm like, that feels so easy. Is that okay? Like my system is still getting used to that, and it feels really good. And we are, welcoming people into this model because I think that especially for women, I think that we are so used to working hard. We are conditioned to believe it has to be hard. I think that's part of our religious programming. It's our programming as people, folks raised as femme or female, to believe that it has to be hard, and that ease and flow just we don't get to have it, or it exists for some people. All of those things factor into like not believing that leveraged income is possible for us, but it absolutely is. There are so many people who come into this business, into leveraged income businesses, not just ours or mine, that were like highly educated people, had the highest levels of education, were engineers and doctors and this and that, and decided like, I was trading time for money and it wasn't working for my family, right? So it's like I think it's a way often for people to allow people to be more present and loving with their family, and like what work or what job is more important than you being present with your family? Yeah, so that's why leverage income is so freaking important. So questions to reflect on would be, where are you still trading time for money in a way that feels heavy, or that feels extractive, or that feels like it touches into that scarcity that makes passive income, or the myth of passive income, really attractive for you? Is there a framework? Is there an offer? Is there something that you know so well that you can teach? Can you bring that outside of yourself, right? From this place that where it's incubating, it's some knowledge that you have that you can bring outside of yourself and share with people that can make you money, right? And how could leveraged income help you feel safer and more supported? So I'm going to leave you with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.